The clink of a spoon against porcelain echoed through the quiet kitchen. Emily stirred her coffee slowly, watching the cream swirl like clouds dispersing in murky water. Across the table, Daniel scrolled through his phone, expression blank, absorbed in a world that no longer included her.
She didn't speak.
She hadn't in a while, at least not in the way that mattered. Their mornings had become routine, two people performing roles they'd long since stopped rehearsing. A marriage sustained by calendar reminders and shared responsibilities, not connection. Emily used to believe love could survive anything. Now she wasn't so sure. Daniel glanced up, briefly. "You need anything from the store?" She shook her head.
No.
"I'm good." He nodded and went back to his screen. No, good morning. No kiss on the cheek. No trace of the man she'd fallen in love with 10 years ago. They had been inseparable once. She remembered college nights, cheap wine, earnest conversations, the thrill of planning a life together. But somewhere between promotions, mortgage payments, and unread text messages, they'd gotten lost. Or maybe only she had. Later that morning, Emily sat by the window, sunlight spilling across the floor in warm strips. She flipped through an old photo album, her fingers brushing the edges of memory. There they were, Daniel with his boyish grin, her laughter frozen midair. They looked like strangers. The doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door to find a familiar face she hadn't seen in years. "Jake?" she asked, stunned. He smiled, eyes the same shade of mischief she remembered from college. "Hey, thought I'd drop in. I was in the area." She blinked, heart lurching in a way it hadn't in a long time. "Wow, it's been what? 10 years." "Closer to 12, he said, stepping back to give her space to decide. "I know it's random. If this is weird." "No," she interrupted. "No, it's not weird. Come in." They sat in the living room, the air between them casual, but charged with nostalgia. He told her about his job in tech consulting, the cities he'd lived in, the relationships that hadn't worked out. She told him about her teaching, about the house, about Daniel, but only the outline of her life, not the hollow spaces inside it. "You look the same," Jake said with a warm smile. "Still doing that thing where you bite your lip when you're thinking." She laughed, surprised by how natural it felt. "And you still deflect with charm when you're nervous." He shrugged.
Guilty.
For the first time in months, she felt seen. Really seen. Not as a wife or a teacher or someone crossing items off a list, but as herself. When Jake left, promising to call, Emily lingered at the door, watching him walk down the path like a ghost returning to the world. Something about his presence had stirred the air around her. A part of her that had gone quiet had started to hum again. That night, Daniel came home late. He muttered a quick hello, loosened his tie, and headed straight to the study. Emily watched him go, unsure whether to follow or stay silent. She chose silence. She reheated leftovers, set 2 plates, and waited. He never came out. She ate alone, the ticking clock sounding louder than usual. Her phone buzzed, a message from Jake. "It was good seeing you.
You haven't changed."
"That's a good thing." She stared at the screen, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then she typed, "It was good seeing you too. Let's catch up again soon." She didn't hit send. Instead, she set the phone down and stood at the kitchen sink, her eyes fixed on the window's reflection of herself. Faint, ghost-like, still. The reflection didn't lie. Something was missing. Had been missing. She wasn't sure when it disappeared or whether it could be found again. But Jake's visit had reminded her. She used to feel. And now? She wasn't sure what she felt at all. She glanced back toward the hallway, where Daniel's study door remained closed. The space between them wasn't just emotional anymore. It had weight, shape. It was a presence in the room. Emily walked upstairs alone. Tomorrow would be another morning. But tonight, for the first time, she didn't miss the silence. She noticed it, and that made all the difference. The cafe was quiet, tucked into a corner street Emily rarely visited. Rain tapped gently against the windows as she stirred her tea, waiting. She had told herself this wasn't a date.
It was just coffee.
Just catching up. But when Jake walked in, brushing water from his jacket and flashing that easy grin, the warmth that bloomed in her chest said otherwise. "You're early," he said, settling into the seat across from her. "I like the quiet before the crowd," she replied, smiling softly. Their conversations flowed easier now, unburdened by the initial awkwardness. He asked thoughtful questions, listened with intent, and laughed at her dry humor, something Daniel used to love. Or maybe he had never truly noticed. Jake leaned back. "I always wondered what would have happened if we stayed in touch." Emily looked down at her cup, suddenly aware of the subtle tension threading between them. "I used to wonder too, but wondering doesn't change reality." "Sometimes," he said gently, "it pushes us to change it." His words lingered long after they left the cafe. She walked home with questions she couldn't quiet. How far could friendship stretch before it snapped? How much was she willing to risk for something she couldn't even name? That evening, she found Daniel at the dining table, eyes fixed on his laptop. "I made dinner," she said. "I already ate at work," he replied, not looking up. A pause. Then, "You could have texted." "I was busy," he said, still typing. Emily stood there, waiting for a flicker of acknowledgement. None came. "Do you even see me anymore?" she asked, her voice low. Daniel glanced up finally, brows drawn together. "What kind of question is that?"
A real one, she said.
"An honest one." He sighed, leaning back. "You've been acting strange lately. Distant." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Strange? Daniel, I've been invisible in this house for months. You're just now noticing. I've been working. For us."
No.
"You've been working because it's easier than dealing with us." He didn't respond. He didn't deny it. He simply returned his gaze to the screen, as if the conversation had ended. Emily walked away, her chest hollow. That night, when Jake's message popped up, "Thinking about you. Hope you're okay." She didn't hesitate. "Can we talk?" He picked her up without questions. They drove in silence, the city lights blurring through rain-streaked windows. When they reached his apartment, she followed him inside, her thoughts a blur of emotion and ache. He poured wine, but they barely touched it. They talked. About Daniel, about the ache of being unseen, about old dreams they'd buried under the weight of growing up. "I hate who I've become," she admitted, her voice shaking. "Not just with Daniel. With myself." Jake stepped closer, but didn't touch her. "Then don't be her anymore." The space between them evaporated. The kiss was slow, hesitant, a question she answered without words. His hand found hers, and she didn't pull away. The connection wasn't about lust. It was the ache of two people remembering what it felt like to be wanted, to be chosen. Later, lying beside him, Emily stared at the ceiling, the hum of city traffic in the distance. Guilt curled in her stomach, cold and unrelenting. "What happens now?" she whispered. Jake turned to face her. "That's up to you." She dressed quietly, kissed him goodbye, and slipped out into the night. The rain had stopped, but everything felt soaked in consequence. At home, Daniel was asleep on the couch, laptop still glowing. She watched him for a moment, heart aching with a confusion she couldn't name. She hadn't just betrayed him. She'd betrayed the life they built, the promises they'd made, even if both had faded long ago. She crept upstairs, her footsteps silent. In the mirror, she saw a woman she didn't quite recognize. Eyes too tired, lips pressed too tight. A woman caught between what was and what might be. She didn't cry. Not yet. Tears would demand certainty, and she had none. Only this. Something had changed, and there was no going back. Morning arrived with an eerie calm. The house was still, but something in the air felt different, like the moment before a storm, charged and waiting. Emily stood at the kitchen sink, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't sipped from. She hadn't slept. Her mind spun with images she couldn't silence. Jake's voice, Daniel's silence, her own reflection in the darkened mirror. The floor creaked behind her. Daniel's voice, hoarse from sleep, broke the quiet. "We need to talk." She turned slowly. His eyes weren't cold or angry. They were tired, confused, wounded. He held something in his hand. Her journal. Emily felt her stomach knot. I didn't go looking for it, he said. It fell behind the dresser. I picked it up and I saw my name. A beat passed before he spoke again, softer. Is it true? She nodded once. Yes. The word felt like a stone dropping into deep water. No splash, just wait. Daniel didn't move. With Jake. Yes. He inhaled deeply, as if searching for enough air to understand. Why? Emily looked down, voice trembling. Because I felt invisible. Because I couldn't remember the last time you looked at me like I mattered. And because, she paused, steadying herself, I was lonely. He didn't argue. Didn't yell. Just stood there, absorbing her confession like rain on dry earth. I know I hurt you, she said. I hate that I did. But I need to be honest with myself, too. This isn't just about Jake. This is about everything we stopped saying. Daniel sat at the edge of a chair, staring at his hands. Were you happy with him? It wasn't happiness, she said. It was a reminder that I used to feel something. They sat in silence, the kind that didn't demand filling. Finally, he asked, Is this the end? Emily hesitated. I think it's been ending for a long time, she said quietly. We just didn't want to admit it. Daniel nodded once, slowly. So, what now? I need space, she said. Not to run to someone else, but to figure out who I am without all the noise. He didn't argue. Maybe deep down he understood. Or maybe he was too tired to fight. She packed lightly, clothes, books, the plants he always forgot to water. The silence between them during that hour wasn't angry or bitter. It was respectful, mournful. Like two people watching the last embers of something that once burned brightly. As she zipped the final suitcase, Daniel appeared in the doorway. I did love you, he said. I just forgot how to show it. I know, she whispered. And I loved you too. I still do in some strange, quiet way. But love isn't supposed to feel like loneliness. She left the key on the hallway table. No grand goodbye. Just a long look and the soft click of a door closing. Jake called that evening. How are you?
She paused.
In between. Does that mean? I'm not ready for anything. Not yet. He didn't press. Whatever you need. She appreciated that. The way he allowed her space without retreating. But her journey forward wasn't about choosing between two men. It was about choosing herself. Days passed. Then a week. Emily settled into a small apartment overlooking a quiet street. She worked. She read. She walked without destination. Some nights she cried without knowing why. Other nights, she slept with a calm she hadn't known in years. One morning, while watering her plants, she caught her reflection in the window. Still tired. Still healing. But there was something else. Presence. She was here. Fully. For the first time in what felt like forever. She sat by the window, journal in hand, and wrote. I made a difficult decision and everything changed. Not because it was right or easy, but because I finally listened to the voice I kept quiet for so long. And in that silence, I found a beginning. Outside, the sky hinted at rain, but for now, the sun broke through. She took a breath and let it fill her fully. There was still guilt. Still grief. But alongside them, there was something softer. Hope. And that, she realized, was enough for today.